I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, to the November board meeting. At this time, we will have roll call.
Ms. Parker, Ms. Kinzer, Ms. Hopkins, Mr. Fulbright. Here. Mr. Moore is present. Mr. Atkinson, Mr. Sims. Here. Mr. Beaver. Here. Mr. Howell. Here. Ms. Morency. Here. Ms. Dudley. Mr. Dudley, sorry. Thank you. We do have a quorum. Apologize for that, Mr. Dudley.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Next is McDowell Elementary School, who's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll have a moment of silence. Won't you stand? Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? The motion's been made by Mr. Dudley and seconded by Mr. Moore. Is there any discussion? Oh, excuse me, you all have something else. I'm so sorry. Let us vote on this and then we'll come back to you, okay? All right. I think we could have a voice vote, couldn't we? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. The motion passes. And back to you, McDowell. Thank you so much. What a great way to start our meeting off. Thank you. And next on the agenda is Dr. Pennell. I don't think you can.
Yeah. Can you sing?
But not right now. Way to go, guys. Can we give another round of applause to our students? They are brave and strong. And also, Miss Brittany Maximowicz, who joined us about a year ago, is our music teacher. We are very blessed to have her leadership in our school as well. She moved here from Florida with her husband and for Dave Ramsey and worked for Disney. We're very pleased with her. Yeah, she did an awesome job. Thank you. Okay, I've got 2 minutes to tell you about all of the amazing things going on at Middle, so I will do my best. Our enrollment is up from last year, a 29% increase in our student enrollment. We are up to 387 students. That's adding a pre-K and about 66 other students. We are right on our way to one-to-one in our entire school. We have about 23 more devices to purchase, and we will be there. Not only do we have them, but we use them all the time. We've integrated a multi-tiered support system for student behavior this year that has helped us to rehabilitate student behavior in our building and help students get the support that they need to be their best. We've integrated student-produced announcements and student-led conferences. This is our second year with student-led conferences. We've also moved forward to our STEM designation application. Ms. Potts and I are both involved in the Tennessee State Innovative Leaders Institute this year, and we were accepted to that a couple of months ago. We've added some extracurricular activities this year with chorus, coding, and art club. Enrichment includes mixed media, movement, Greek, Latin, Spanish, and media production this year for our students. Right now, we have 74% of our students are on track for grade level in reading, and 83% are on track for math. We do have that data thanks to our iReady growth monitoring assessments. This is our second year to use the iReady tools and the Ready Math tools, but we did purchase the reading tool as a supplementary tool at McDowell this year, and we really do love it. My teachers will tell you that too. Last week we celebrated Reading is a Treat by giving every student a book, and in addition to that, we also had a trunk or treat in the parking lot. We had over 600 participate in that event, quite a bit of community involvement as well and support. We have a STEAM night aligned with student-led conferences this Thursday evening. You are welcome to attend. It's a huge pirate-themed event. And another thing to celebrate is the leadership of our staff. Our staff are presenting, they are sharing, they are excited, they are leading and telling about all of the wonderful things not only happening at McDowell, but also in Marin County. And so I am very proud to be the principal at McDowell. We work very hard. We appreciate your support. We are growing, we are changing, and we're excited about being McDowell. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is Dr. Woodard.
Well, I tell you what, that's a real tough act to follow, but we sure are going to try tonight. Good evening, Chair Kinzer, board members, and of course, Dr. Marzak. Tonight I want to take a moment to highlight the work of two of our outstanding teachers who are CTE teachers in our district, Mr. Dale Long and Mr. Justin Herrick. I'll start first with Mr. Dale Long. Mr. Dale Long is a Project Lead the Way teacher at Spring Hill High School, and one of his students developed a really neat product. They developed a concussion protocol helmet that will light up when a student has enough impact to sustain a head injury or brain injury. And so this particular helmet took 11th in the nation. They took it to a Skills USA competition, and that particular product took 11th in the nation. It was developed by Deep Patel, who is a junior at Spring Hill High School, Bryson Vargas and Amber Sandvig, who they also worked on this project together, but took 11th in the nation. out of all the projects. It scored number 11, so did real well at the Skills USA competition. And we're real proud about that. And I want to give Mr. Long a chance to kind of talk about this project and some other things he's doing with Project Lead the Way. Mr. Long?
Thank you for having me. What Dr. Woodard didn't tell you is that first, this prototype is not functional. My students stole the battery out of it. So they're making a Game Boy now. But 11th in the nation is separated from first in the nation by 70 points. Okay? And there were 29 competitors in this contest, and actually the three students that he mentioned, a senior and two juniors, started this when they were a junior and two sophomores. And they came to me, and I'm like, that's kind of a tall order. And I said, I'll support you, go ahead. And so they did their research. They put a lot of thought, a lot of work. The project book back here represents over 500 hours of work. And we had quite handily the best presentation at there, even though we didn't come in but 11th. So we're all about doing something different at Spring Hill. I took my 10 years as an engineer, and I've really challenged these kids to go do weird things. We participated in a barbecue cook-off last month in Mount Pleasant, and we were and probably will continue to be the crew that shows up with a wooden smoker that doesn't burn. It just cooks really nice food. So we're all time doing something, something innovative is what I like to think, and I appreciate it. I love teaching here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also wanted to highlight some of the neat things that are happening with our Project Lead the Way middle schools. Mr. Harrod, last year at Christmas time, you guys received some neat clocks from students that students made, and some students came and told you about that. But this year we got something else for you for Thanksgiving. We have some Thanksgiving platters that we'd like to give you, made out of slate that students engraved, and we're going to pass those out at this time. I'll pass them out, and Mr. Harrod, if you'll tell the board members about it.
First, thank you. And second, they're very breakable, so if you get mad, don't slam your hands down on it. Basically, I had an individual who said, hey, I have these. Would you be interested in using them in your classroom? I was like, well, sure. I was like, all right. And I brought them. I'm sitting there. I get a text message. I say, how much are they? And I asked someone, and they go, well, how much do you need? I was like, and I told him, he's like, my friend from Life Touch goes, this is what, here you go, and just handed me. He goes, go do it. I was like, all right. So I brought them in the classroom. The kids basically started researching. They're like, what can we do with these? Besides just throwing stickers on there. And then they found etching cream. So we found some that were already broken, and we started playing around with it. And basically the kids were able to kind of come up with an assumption or an idea that timing it right will give you like almost a two-tone different look. So if you look at them, they're all not going to be the same because they're all going to be slightly different. The Murray County logo is going to be was put on there for about 4 minutes. And then your names, except for I think it was Sims, where's it? Yours is like really, really bright, right? Yeah, they forgot about yours. So, but luckily your name, well, it was sitting on the microwave, and they're like, oh no. But, luckily your name was like, short enough we were able to kind of maneuver it in there. But, it was definitely a trial and error. I think we only really lost 2. Atkinson, his was one that was not done right, so we had to redo that one. And then the other, I have yours. If don't get upset, I got yours. You can use them. They have a nice little thing, tells you how to clean them, just soap and water. Basically, my class, and this is the 8th grade class that does this, it's pretty much pushed by whatever they can come up with. Whatever they see that would be interesting for them, innovating, that's pretty much what they do every single day. And that really guides that whole curriculum the whole year long. So, but we start off just, let's see what we can do and go after that. So, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I want you to know that my clock is still running, and it's sitting right on the I've still got it, and I do appreciate it. And I want to also say to you, your student, I went to the workforce workshop and I was so impressed with your students. And so smart, they was just so motivated, and I was just really proud of Murray County Schools that so many people from the community could see that. And Amber was one of them, actually. So thank you for that, and thank you to both of you.
I have to brag a second about the Skills USA. That's what brought that out in her. I'm not alone, but we made a state officer out of her, and she has done an excellent job. I'm super proud of her.
Should be, for sure. Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you, board members, for your investment in Project Lead the Way, and I think you're going to see in the next few years some of the top engineers in this country will come out of Murray County. Thank you.
Next is the Murray County Education Association, Ms. Inc.
Thank you, Chair Kinzer, Dr. Marzak, and board members for always allowing MCA time for public comments and concerns. With the just kind of going back this past quarter, with the exception of some issues with K2 getting report cards completed, the report cards seemed to go as smoothly as possible. The new information system had some snags, and everybody knows about that. Most kinks hopefully will be worked out and not have an issue again. As the discussion involving instructional materials and supplies happens, I would like to remind the board and Dr. Marzak of the fine arts programs in our county. I've given Chair Kinzer a copy of some suggestions that were developed during our meeting, and then I will email the rest of the board members. I just had an issue at work to get it copied. And those are collected from various fine arts teachers throughout the county. And I just want to address one of our teachers, Ms. Harrington, who's a fine arts teacher at Riverside, has done a lot of murals in this county and is a phenomenal artist. And she is bringing just nothing but highlights to our district.
Wonder who her teacher was.
I'm going to throw out a wild guess and say it was Miss Betty Kinzer. I don't know.
I take no credit.
As we look towards the end of the first quarter, I want to again reiterate the need for improved compensation for all employees in our district. This includes recruiting substitutes. Every time we have a substitute that's not fulfilled in our classroom, it impacts students and another teacher missing their class time or its planning time. This includes recruiting substitutes, new employees at competitive wages so that we can retain competitive employees. We appreciate board members wanting teachers' input into program purchases, instructional programs, that is. When purchasing programs, we would like, however, many of the resources, such as online components for reinforcement, differentiation, and enrichment, are the components that kind of make teachers feel like, ooh, this is an amazing program. So as we vet the programs and look at purchasing, we would like for you all to include costs for all components of the program. Oftentimes the research basis for the program is the entirety of the program, not just one portion of the program. And that's why it's scientifically research-based. We have teachers and members meeting on the calendar committee. That was really enjoyable the other day, I have to say. It was lengthy and interesting, and we have a lot of committee members offering a lot of valuable input and unique ideas. Leap year and election, the election day, the new law that says students can't be in buildings where apparently elections are being held, have created some issues, but I was impressed with the collaboration. On the one day I was able to go because at some point we have to do cross-country. We're going to meet again tomorrow to look at the 21-22 calendar. Thank you again to the board for always allowing MCA to have a voice at the stand and to have input on behalf of Murray County employees.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any public Okay. Any staff reporting? All right. Next is consent items. Is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve. Second. Motion made by Mr. Moore and seconded by Mr. whatever your name is, Howell. I'm sorry. Left me. Okay. Any discussion? Sorry. Then we're ready to vote. You'll have to announce it, we don't have it on the screen. Okay, then that, motion does pass. Next is finance, and I think there's a budget amendment that wasn't part of consent. Is there any discussion about it? Is there any need for explanation? I don't know. Just a budget amendment.
If you all have any questions, it's just the one for the Safe Schools grant. And the original grant was in the budget for $117,000 and some change, but that's before we found out how much the state actually approved. So the state ended up almost doubling the grant. So this is just an amendment taking the funds out of where we had originally put it, which was transportation 599 line, and putting it in to have the safety position salary, and the remainder of it is going into equipment and stuff. But I did get the amendment on there today, so I apologize for that, because that was one of the last minute items that we had to meet about on Friday to get it all lined out, so.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second? Mr. Sims seconded. Motion was made by Mr. Moore. Any discussion? Then we're ready to vote. Mr. Moore made the motion. Mr. Sims seconded. Are you seeing the vote? Okay, motion does pass. All right. Zoning and facilities, the first one is the recommendation for the savings, for Battle Creek schools. You've seen the rationale. We discussed this at, the work session. Mr. Moore has made the motion to approve. Is there a second? Mr. Howell, second, or Mr. Dudley, one, whichever. Mr. Howell. Any discussion? Then we're ready to vote. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Mr. Moore.
Okay. I guess the only question I still have is the 350 number is still a rough estimate. I guess my only concern still on this is, well, I won't say it's the only concern. My biggest concern is the potential overage in asking for this out of fund balance. At this point, is there no other way to get this done, or are we hoping we get the $372,000 worth of savings
We're
left over?
hoping right there that that's
And we
gonna
can make
come
the
in.
two meet?
Yes, we're hoping that first. If not, we wanted to have a contingency to say if we could do, if nothing else works out, we do fund balance, because as we talked to Mr. Spencer, we have the lighting folks on site now. If we can at least let them go ahead and be doing the planning and maybe some of the, we're planning to do
Keep
this
the costs
project,
down.
it's much cheaper than them leaving and then coming back. We will work it out any way we can to not have to go into fund balance. We just needed some sort of commitment to say, if all else fails, we can.
Okay.
Is there any other excuse me, Ms. Morency? Or, no, I don't know who was first. Ms. Morency?
The only problem I have is okaying something that we don't know how much is gonna come out of fund balance.
And if you want us to, we can bring that back. Mr. Spencer is pretty comfortable with the numbers, but as he gets to the end of the budget cycle, he just says, you know, you never know what last minute thing's gonna happen as you finish up. But in talking to Mr. Hall and I, when we looked at this option, we said if this isn't a feasible option, we can't do this, then just tell us and we won't even carry it to them. And he said, no, I'm comfortable, we can get this done. So we're waiting on those final numbers. He says 350. He told us it could be as high as 400. It could be as low, in the worst case, as 338. If you want us to bring this back when we have a little bit more clarity, we can do that. We were just trying to get, while everything's on site, they're there to light the football field, and if we had some sort of commitment, we can save money in the long run.
Okay, I could not vote for this just because, I don't know how much money, I don't wanna approve something to take money out of fund balance that we have no idea how much that's gonna be.
If I might, I'm sorry if I'm jumping in on that, since I made the motion, I would like to clarify my motion that it would come back to us before anything comes out of fund balance, if y'all are okay with that.
We can do that.
I mean, I would be approving this contingent on that, but I would expect, I don't know how to word that properly if I get some help, but I would expect that it comes back before anything comes out of fund balance.
Are you all right with the wording of that? Mr. Howden, you make this,
Would you, and Mr. Hall, do you wanna put a number on it if it did come back that it had to come out of fund balance, there's a not to exceed, or would you just say, I'd rather you come back to us at this point?
Since we don't know, again, since we don't know which either one of these numbers are, if it's anything over whatever we have left over, is my intention that it would need to come back to us for approval.
Can I ask, and I'm good with that, just if we do, can I get some sort of direction as to where you may, if this isn't a doable number, and let's say this comes back at 338 and y'all say, oh no, we're not taking that much out of fund balance to fund the difference. What sort, I mean, if the savings come back at that number, what sort of direction do you want me to take with looking at other options? Or do we just say this is what we wanna do, and if not, if the numbers don't come back and you're not good with it, we just discuss it at that point? And again, you're working kinda in that final moment of, if all goes well, we're good. We hesitated to bring this. They really said we're comfortable enough with this number for you to do that. But again, I understand your uncertainty. We just wanna know what sort of maybe directions that we could be looking at, that if we come to you and you say no, we have some sort of other option for you, rather than just saying, well, now what do we do? So, and again, I'm good with whatever.
Ms. Parker?
I'm actually just curious, what exactly did we get for the money that we did spend on athletic fields? Because it seems to me to spend $1.75 million and not come out with, the options that you gave us at the meeting were this lighting package for the baseball fields, the softball fields.
Correct.
It's my understanding there's not really that much fencing up at those, on those fields. And then also you said something about a concession stand restroom area. I'm just like, what did we get for $1.75 million?
What you got for 1.75, now the athletic fields are fenced.
Okay.
So that portion of the fence, when I mention fencing, what I really mention too is that the perimeter fencing for the campus, that's really where the state is
Okay.
focusing on us for safety issues. Now, we have fencing around the quad at the middle school, the elementary school is fenced completely around the playground area. The fencing for the ball fields is intact, so the ball fields are complete. So you have a complete baseball field, a complete softball field. You have a football field that is the middle school plan one for if a high school comes up there, it can be expanded. There'll be room to put a track in, the bleachers can be expanded, and that's what you get. It is a lit facility. There are not restrooms, and one of the things that we've talked about, because I know that the school voiced that as a concern, and it's a concern for us as well, but as we look down the road, if this is a facility that is used by a high school as well, that concession stand restroom area has to be much beefier and much bigger than it would just for a middle school, just because of the sheer foot traffic that a 2,000-foot high school would put on that site. That pushed the cost of that facility to a point where we know we can't touch that. And it's really in the design of facility that you can't sort of start and then maybe do the restrooms and then come back and complete later, because they're actually in the middle of the building. So we eliminated that, and what we went for was an obvious item that we're putting a facility in, that we have the field, that we have everything that we need to play a game, we just don't have the lighting. Now, we can come back with lots of, we've got 237 acres. We can come back with lots of things that need to be done up there as far as fencing and some improvements, but we didn't go that route just because they felt comfortable with this number. But again, we're good with bringing that back if need be.
Mr. Fulbright?
Thank you. Where did the $372,000 come from? Was that from Hewlett Spencer, or was that from the electric?
That's from Hewlett Spencer. That will be the savings that they are predicting after everything is paid.
No, I mean the cost for the project.
Oh,
Did
that
that
is,
come
that
from-
is from the electric company. The 372 is actually what it will cost to get it done.
Okay. Doug, may I ask you a question? How are we doing on the fund balance?
Came out of capital, excuse me, those came out of capital funds, so that'll be out of the 177 fund. So we have the
Okay, so it will
350,000.
affect operation. Okay,
No, it's all capital.
thank you.
And Mr. Hall pointed that out, we weren't gonna, the original came back at 392, and Hewlett Spencer agreed to oversee the project and to forego their 6%. Because we didn't feel like the 392 was a doable number, and they said we can still handle this. It's not that big of a deal at the end, we can push this through and we'll give that up. That pulled it to 372, and they were more comfortable for you getting, you know, kind of bang for buck at that point. Just because we knew 392 probably wasn't gonna be a doable number.
Dr. Marzak?
Yeah, so, Mr. Moore, what I've changed the motion to is recommend approval of using predicted savings in the amount of $350 from Battle Creek Schools project to provide lighting for the baseball and softball fields at the Battle Creek Schools by Reynolds Electric, and if the predicted savings is insufficient to cover the entire cost, we recommend coming back to the board and taking the difference from fund balance.
No,
For discussion.
for discussion.
Okay? We recommend coming back to the board for discussion. Okay?
Or approval, whatever.
Okay. Discussion/approval. Okay.
And we
Good.
will ask, and as they told us, they think they have 2 billing cycles left. The only thing that will not be complete, until the spring, and they've set the money aside, are the grandstands for the football field. They can't install them this time of year and do the adequate job with the weather the way it is. So they're gonna wait and put those in late March, early April, and that'll be the kind of the bow on top of everything. But they're gonna set that aside. They already have a number, that is good for that. So they thought that when he talked to us at the end of last month, that within about 2 billing cycles, everything would be complete.
Dr. Marzak?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Do you need to hear the motion again? Okay, read the motion again, please.
Recommend approval of using predicted savings in the amount of $350,000 from the Battle Creek Schools project to provide lighting for the baseball and softball fields at the Battle Creek Schools by Reynolds Electric, and if the predicted savings is insufficient to cover the entire cost, we recommend coming back to the board for discussion/approval.
And I see it right there, so there you go. Any other discussion? Then we're ready to vote.
Please vote now. Mr. Dudley, how do you want to vote? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. That motion passes.
Next on the agenda is a GMP for the atrium at Highland Park Elementary School. We discussed it at the work session. Okay. There's a motion by Mr. Moore to approve. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Howell. Any discussion? Mr. Sims?
At the work session, I spoke briefly about, quotes and things like that, and, I was told that projects under 250,000, it's hard to get people to quote, which I disagree with, but, the state, there's laws in place for getting quotes for reasons. We're working under I don't guess it's a loophole, but we don't do that because we use Hewlett Spencer. I just feel that I understand the larger projects. Y'all's office may be understaffed to take large projects to completion. I mean, this seems like a small project when you can walk up to it and say, this, I don't know, 30 foot wide piece of glass needs to be replaced. Why we're not getting competitive bids?
I'll answer as best I can, 'cause I came in late on it, okay? But I do know that historically, the statement that was made to you was, we had several projects last year that as an operations team, we were all a part of. From parking lots to windows at several schools that we put out to bid and no one bid on. And what we're finding is kind of that we're so close to Nashville that everyone is busy. They can do smaller projects that are gonna pay more, and they can do them relatively quickly. We ran into an issue with a parking lot right as the school year started, and as our transition started to where we did bid it, and we had a low bid that won and fell within our budget, and we ended up having to pull the bid because the contractor that got the bid did not have the proper licensure. And that's one thing that we see. One of the misnomers that we have, we build industrial buildings. We call them school buildings, but they are industrial buildings. They are like factories. Oftentimes on small projects, we get bids from people who do residential work. Not to say they can't do it, but oftentimes their licensure isn't the same. The things that they bring to the table, their electricians are residential electricians. And we run into multiple factors. Now, this project may be one that you could exempt from that. So the practice of the office has been to work through folks that we know have those proper licensures, that have those proper credentials, that can warranty their work. You remember even this last year, we used a local company for paving, and we had to go through kind of some special hurdles to get them the proper insurance, the proper things that they needed just to do this project, just because they had never done it. Now, they did it, and they did a great job. It takes a little bit longer. We can do that, and we can look at individual projects moving forward. We have no problem with that. Mr. Hall and I discussed it. We've discussed it with Mr. Schuyler and other folks in our department, and we're good with that. And if that's the will of the board, then we can open those things up. I fear sometimes that we're gonna run into something that down the road we're having to maybe bring someone in to clean up. We've had that at some things in the past where they got started, they realized it was more than they thought it would be. We had to bring someone in to finish it. And then, like I said, we had this parking lot project where we just had to pull it because they didn't meet what the county said they had to have to do work on our buildings. But we're good with that. We can move forward. We can look at those things, and we can look for local folks, or we can look for folks around. But I do just ask that sometimes we maybe have that discretion if it is something that we're not seeing a lot of interest in, that we push forward a different way.
And on the paving thing, if I remember, by the low bid, I mean, we saved I can't remember the exact number, $50,000. And as far as I've seen the parking lots, they look great. And even if we do have to go through a little bit of trouble, $50,000 to me is worth a little more trouble. It would pay the salary almost of another person, you know, if we went to the next higher bid. And so that's where I'm getting at. It's not a slight on Hewlett Spencer. I think they do good work, hire good contractors. It's not a slight on whoever, Holland Construction. I don't know who they are, but if it were a low bid process, they may be the low bid. I don't know, but we won't know unless we do put it out for bids. That's where I'm getting at. It's not a slight on anyone at all.
And we understand that. Just one thing, please do know that, one, there are lots of laws that govern this, not just the low bid law. We're not in a loophole, we're in a law. We're following a law. We're just choosing a law that sometimes other folks go, well, you didn't choose the law that we chose, or that we would like you to choose. We're doing everything the way that we can, to, one, give you good quality work, to, two, give you work that is done on time and that we can continuously do. We're looking right now, as we go through this last bit of EMG money through the end of next year, we've got things that have to be done over break. And if we stop to bid over Christmas break, then that may put a 3 to 4 to 5 week out on getting someone just set to do it. And then if that's true, and if they're busy, which, you know, most folks that do real good work are busy, they may not be able to do it in the time frame in which we need it, because we have to do lots of work sometimes when our children aren't in the buildings to be impacted. But I'm not pushing back on you, I just need you to understand, or I ask you to, that we're not doing a loophole, we're following a law. It just isn't the law sometimes that everybody says, hey, that's the one that we like for you to do better, so.
Well, let me just put on a little clarification on that. We're not sidestepping or going around with a loophole. We hire Hewlett Spencer with the 6% markup. They're the ones that do the vetting of the contractors. So if there's other contractors that want to get our business and we're gonna go through Hewlett Spencer, they need to go talk to Hewlett Spencer because they are essentially the general contractor for that project.
Ms.
I
Parker?
don't know if that helps.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
You mentioned Holland Construction, and you'd indicated that, is that a local company that,
It's not a Columbia-based company, it's a company that works through Hewlett Spencer.
okay. I was just gonna say, 'cause I just looked them up, and they're out of Chattanooga.
Right,
So
right.
they're not local.
No, I said we can look, if you wish for us to look for local folks, we can do that, but they do work through Hewlett Spencer, and again, like Mr. Hall said, they put that out to bid, and they get folks that return on work that way.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I would just like to enforce that if we do a bid through purchasing, we cannot limit it to only local, vendors. It's part of just the bid process. We would be convicted of tainting the bid process, and people in other cities would say, you know, oh, you limited the bid to just Columbia, and, you know, we didn't get a chance. We could open ourselves up to a lawsuit. So us in particular cannot do that, but under the Public Building Authority through Hewlett Spencer, their bid process is a little bit different, and they can do things that really my purchasing department cannot do.
Ms. Morency?
Is this the same, contractor that did the mechatronics lab they did a great job, at Mount Pleasant High School?
And they are currently redoing flooring at Baker, and I encourage you to go by and look at it, because I think it's pretty cool. It's taken.
They went above and beyond at Mount Pleasant High School with this, so I thought that was the same company. Okay.
Is there any other discussion? Then we're ready to vote.
Ms. Shirley, you want me to grab it? Cool, gotcha. All right, that's okay, I get it. All right, who made the motion?
Mr. Morse makes all the motions.
Who seconded? Is it Mr. Howell?
Yes,
All
Mr.
right.
Howell seconds all
All
the
right,
motions.
please vote now. Mr. Dudley? Thank you, sir. That motion passes.
Okay, moving on, the athletics facilities plan, once again, we discussed it at the work session. The recommendation is to, go with approval of proposal 3, although I did think that we kinda discussed giving him, you know, letting him have some leeway on that, but, is there any discussion about it, Mr. Moore? Mr. Moore's made the motion.
Got it.
Mr. Howell, are you gonna second the motion?
Sure.
Oh,
Okay.
Ms. Morency's gonna second the motion.
All righty.
Yeah, we do, we really do. Any discussion on the motion? You have discussion, okay.
Would we like to amend this to include a budget amendment so that we can get that through, pulling this proposal out of fund balance?
Great idea.
Yes.
Would that be all right with you all to include this as, so that he can get the budget amount, to the commission with the other one? You understand?
I guess I assumed from the discussion at the work session that we would wait for bids to come through on any of this work and just approve it as it comes through. That's what I'd assumed. And personally, I would rather wait until we get the actual bids and the actual numbers, but I would be up to anybody else, opinion on that.
Mr. Howell?
Well, I vote that we just go ahead and approve for $500,000. Anything, it's a capital account, so anything that isn't used this year rolls over to next year. So, let's say we get to the end of the year and he's got $8,000 in there, well, next year he has a project that
is $32,000, but he has $8,000 more, so it's $40,000, so now he can complete another project. I say we just go ahead and earmark the $500,000 in a capital account just for that. Yeah, and it'll have to come back to you for approval anyway.
Yeah.
Mr. Moore, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so recommend approval proposal 3 for the, athletic facility plan, as well as,
Budget amendment. How do you wanna word that, Mr. O'Connor?
how much was it, 500,000? As well as approving a budget amendment for $500,000 to come
What?
from fund balance.
Hold on just a minute.
Okay.
And the expenditure account would be 14172810799.
Got it,
Oh my gosh.
got it.
That,
Do you
I
want-
was just fixing to give you those numbers, but, yeah.
Do you wanna,
Mr. Fulbright?
do you want all the zeros at
Doug,
the end?
don't run off.
Yeah, wait, Doug.
Mr. Lukonen,
Mr. Laconin. Mr. Fulbright
just,
has
I
a
need
question.
you to refresh my memory from our conversation last week. Where is how did we get this $500,000?
This was brought up at the retreat based on a plan that Mr. Pointer and Mr. Howell have worked on.
Which fund this is coming out of the capital fund balance?
This is coming out of the 141 general purpose fund balance. We ended up having a surplus at the end of last year. At the retreat, we discussed how, as a school board with me, Dr. Marzak, how we would spend some of this leftover surplus that we had gotten. But right now, I believe this would put us just over the $1 million mark if we approve this budget amendment out of the $3,078,000 that we had in surplus last year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion, other than you, Dr. Marzak?
Recommend approval of proposal 3 for the athletics facility plan, as well as approving a budget amendment for $500,000 to come from fund balance for 141E 72810799, and then all those zeros at the end.
Okay. With no more discussion, we're ready to vote.
Please vote now.
Okay.
Motion passes.
That motion does pass. I don't believe there's a policy.
No.
Next is the attorney contract. Any discussion about,
Motion to approve.
I don't have them. Excuse me?
I don't know if you guys got it. I know that emails to the board email
I
have
got
to be
it.
approved. Okay. I just wanted to let you all know that I sent that about 5 p.m. today or
Yeah,
something like
That's
that.
for the November work session. That's for the December work session.
Oh, what I was supposed to send?
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, well,
That's
it
for a-
seems
that's
like
for
it
a policy.
pertains
I
to
mean,
this
I'm glad to
discussion,
have
the
it.
attorney billing, you know, and
It's part of the discussion, I think, as well. We had asked to see what were board and what were staff, and if it were both staff and board, he put it in the board column. That's the way I understood it. So it makes it look like we're a little more expensive than we really are. So, but there, if you really look at it and study it, and I didn't have that much time to do it, there are some months that we, you know, that it was only staff that used the lawyer. So, anyway, for you all to reflect on it and whatever, if you wanna move this, whatever you wanna do about this, I don't know.
That was for the policy. This is the.
Oh,
we
that
have
was
to-
for the
Yeah, we have
policy.
to approve the attorney contract.
Okay,
His time's running out.
never mind. Okay, Mr. Beaver.
Thank you, ma'am. You know, I know last year, or the last time, Mr. Wolliver's contract was up, that we asked for it to come back to us earlier, so we'd have some, time to, discuss it, see what's available. And, you know, I'd like to, see that we couldn't do that this year. And I think Mr. Wolliver said that he would hang around, or I'm not saying, but work with us so we could just see what's available.
Sure, but, and I take this for what it's worth. I'm not interested in submitting another proposal.
Right.
So what you have for me is the base rate that I've done for probably 6 years now. And if you're comfortable with that, that's fine. If you do wanna get quotes from other firms or whatever, I'll work out until you get that done, and then I'll hand it over. Honestly, yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to do that. If y'all wanna take a look at other things, then I'll be glad to work that out. But I won't resubmit. Honestly, this is one of those things that I kinda do. I turn down, work at full price to do this, so I'm fine to do that, but I won't resubmit a quote. So you have kinda my bottom dollar there.
You know, I understand that, and, you know, I wouldn't ask you to, go through any extra, you know, but I would like to see what's available, you know.
Mr. Dudley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I personally think we're got some legal issues that are ongoing. I don't know how much Mr. Woolver is involved, but I know he does have some involvement with some of our current legal issues. Personally, I'm satisfied with the work he has done, and I'm satisfied with the rates. So you know, I would like to see us proceed and going ahead and letting this be done for another 3-year period.
Is that a motion, Mr. Dudley?
All righty.
Is there a second?
Devin
Mr.
Moore
Fulbright?
Oh, Ms. Fulbright seconded? All right.
Any other discussion? Okay, then we're ready to vote.
Please vote now. Kinda figured as much. Motion passes.
All right, moving on, we had bids, curriculum resources. Again, another discussion, at the, work session. Mr. Moore made the motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Howell seconded the motion. Is there a discussion?
I just got a question.
Mr. Fulbright?
Could somebody from finance or purchase, oh, there you go. There's 4 companies listed. Were these put out to bid, or how did these 4 companies come about this?
Sources?
Yes.
They're adoptions.
It's from Tennessee, yeah, Tennessee Book Company.
They're adoptions. No, it's not, well, it's my understanding, that they're adoptions of books that, yeah, the state of Tennessee certifies them. We have teachers here that are also on those committees, and these represent adoptions, not, you know, I'm not saying yea or nay.
I'm just trying to figure out how the vendors get put in these, get awarded this business. Can you fill me in on that?
Can I try to figure?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been on the textbook committees one other time. They come and bring textbooks for you to spend the day looking at, rating, or well, actually we get them ahead of time, and it's done all across the state. And then you rate what textbook that you think would be best for your subject matter. It's not necessarily the one you end up with, 'cause other places do it as well, but it is, at least teachers do have that input.
So this is open to all vendors from?
Yes.
All book vendors?
Actually, it's the only way I ever got art books, because being on the committee, we got them free. And we got the teacher books and everything, so I was always willing to go and be on one of those committees, because they would be there trying to sell their product to you. I don't mean to answer these questions, but is there any other, Ms. Parker or Mr. Fulbright, are you?
I think I did it.
Okay.
Dr. Woodard, does this include, the online component for iReady? The assessment piece that you mentioned to me when we had a discussion about curriculum resources back in October?
No, ma'am, that does not include the iReady component. We talked about that as a team, and we discussed it, and the cost of the, books plus the iReady component will be about $50 per child. And so, we made the decision to maybe ask for that potentially in next year's, budget for the FY '21 budget.
So this is why I made the comments that I made at the work session, and why I want to get input from the teachers, because I've heard from the teachers that are using iReady, and they want that online component. They want that assessment piece. I've heard it from you, Dr. Woodard. I've heard it from other administrators that they would like that online component. And while I know that this is mostly supposed to be for textbooks, I don't think we're looking at things holistically when we're just giving them a pot of money. The other thing I would say is, I know you mentioned foreign languages, and I'm not saying foreign languages aren't important, but I don't recall us being evaluated on foreign languages when we look at those scores. And if we're trying to move ourselves out of the bottom 5%, I think we need to focus on the things that we're being evaluated on and that we're being looked at by everybody in the state. It's not that those things are not important, but we're dealing with some scarce resources. I mean, we've already cut this number before. That's not to say that there's not still some money that we could use for some things, but I just think we need to look at this holistically and not just throw money at a problem when the money, quite frankly, should have been thrown at it before August 1st. The book should have been in the kids' hands and in the teachers' hands on August 1st, and to do it January 1st, February 1st, November 1st, is doing them a disservice. And so I will not support this until we have a chance to talk to the teachers and find out what it is that really is going to move the needle for these kids. I just don't think that we have that answer. I think we have what somebody has said they think is the answer, but we know from past experiences, we'll buy books and they'll sit on a shelf because nobody's going to use them because they're not bought in, because they didn't get trained on them. I heard that last year on iReady, that by the end of the year, they were just putting books to the side. They were tired of dealing with it because they didn't have units that were prepared for, or, that were ready to go. I just think that we really need to look at this in a more holistic manner than what we're doing, and so I'm not comfortable. I don't think that what we talked about at the work retreat is what we're doing here.
Okay, and this, just so we know, this was once again something from the retreat that we talked about. There was money taken out of the budget to try to make the budget, as what the commission has said we would get, so textbooks is what took the hit. And so once we saw that we had an unexpended balance, and I tend to call it that rather than a surplus, it's just that monies that were not spent that we have, then we chose to use it on curriculum. Seems to me that figure was over $500,000 originally. So, but I too think that when we talked about at the retreat, and we talked about having the teacher round table, and I feel like that is something we really need to do. And I know it would put it off for a month, because I know you're planning on doing this right for PD before Thanksgiving. Okay, so I do support Ms. Parker that we at least do that and make sure that we're doing what the teachers feel is going to be best serve them. I'm just saying.
I'd like to
All right,
chime in.
Okay, I'm gonna let Mr. Howell speak, and then you can chime.
So Dr. Woodard, how are these books chosen? Was there a textbook committee? There is a textbook committee?
We do have yes, we do have textbook committees that choose the
who are
books
they
that go
composed
forward.
of?
It's composed of teachers from
How
our
do they get
district.
on there?
They volunteer, and then once they volunteer, the principal send us the names, and then we select them, and then we run those to the board.
So would it be safe to say that these books have been vetted by teachers
These
here
books,
in Murray County?
These books have been vetted by teachers. The
Okay.
problem is that we have vetted books, but we have never purchased. That's the thing. We adopt every year, but we never purchase what we adopt, and that's been the problem. As I mentioned to you all before, we've missed 2 adoption cycles in mathematics, and so we're about 12 years behind in mathematics. We're at the point now where if we want to see higher progress and better academic outcomes, we have to have the materials to do it. And I'll be quite honest, I've become a little frustrated with the idea of waiting to get going. If we have additional revenue, if we found a surplus and we know we have needs, then, let's take care of the needs and put the materials in the hands of the kids. Let's not make the children wait. The kids need the textbooks now. With regard to the previous statement, we've done our due diligence on this. We've never come to you with something that we just threw together. We've done our due diligence on this. We put together a survey probably a month and a half ago, and we did ask teachers what they wanted, and they did say that they wanted it already. The problem is we don't have enough money to get everything that everyone wanted. And so we came to you with what we thought was the best proposal for what all the solutions that we got back, all the feedback we got back from teachers. And we felt like going with Algebra 1, French 1, Spanish 1, and then additional resources, K-8, will be the best way to move forward for the district. We would love to have the iReady intervention tool. We think that would be outstanding, but it's very expensive. And until we decide that that's what we want to do moving forward, we don't want to start the iReady and then not have the funding the next years to the subsequent years to keep that going. But right now, we're going to have algebra. Algebra will be a subject every year, so we need the books now. Spanish 1, French 1, these are graduation requirements. If a student is going to college, then you need 2 years of foreign language, so we need them now. And as I mentioned to you last board at the work session, some of the books and materials that we have are, 15 or more, 14 years, I think, are so old. And we have books that are falling apart. So let's get the resources in the hands of the kids. I am all for having a teacher committee. My understanding of the purpose of having the teacher committee was so that we could plan for the FY21 year, not with the resources that we have now. I thought with the resources that we have now, we're going to show up and start catching up because, like I mentioned, that we are a little bit behind. And so I'd like to see us use the resources we have now to start catching up. And then let's take the teacher, I'm all for having a teacher roundtable, get some discussion and get some feedback on what we can do with the FY21 budget as we move towards February. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have two quick questions for clarification. I didn't ask my first question very well. I guess my question comes down to, how do we know that the Spanish book at $88 is the best price that we could get for a Spanish book for our children? So that was put out to bid, and all the vendors across the nation had an opportunity to bid to show us that $88 was the cheapest price?
We choose off of the state contract. The state has already vetted these vendors, and then our textbook adoption committee then chooses one specific
So it didn't
vendor.
really go out to bid, it's just, thank you.
It's off the state, yeah, off
That's
the
all I
state
needed to
contract.
know on that question.
Yep.
My other question would be, Spanish 1, French 1, do we have qualified teachers to teach those classes that we're buying books for? Because we had a very long discussion about not having Spanish teachers in place.
We did, and I wanted to clarify that also. I try to hold back somewhat when we have work sessions so that when we have real discussions in our conversations, it doesn't become argumentative back and forth. There was some conversation about a Spanish teacher that got a waiver. Okay, we don't issue waivers. I am not responsible for licensure. It's not my responsibility. With regard to that teacher that was issued a waiver, the state of Tennessee issues that waiver. And if you get a waiver, the state says you know enough Spanish for us to allow you to go and teach that subject.
I
now,
appreciate you.
So let me clarify, if I may. Yes, we have qualified individuals there. Where we have shortages, sometimes we do have to apply for a person to have a waiver, but then that person, of course, is vetted by the state.
Thank you.
I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Couple of questions following up. With the French and Spanish, you said those are graduation requirements. So are we not graduating students with foreign language right now with 20-year-old books? Are we graduating them?
Yes, we're still graduating them. I just like to see us update the books that we have.
Right.
Yes.
My issue there, though, is, again, when we talk about need, I don't know that that's necessarily what I would prioritize right now. And that's what I really want us as a board to engage in and really have a conversation with teachers. I don't want the teachers that teach French and Spanish to think that I don't want them to have the resources that they need. I do. But I also don't feel like just because we're checking off a graduation requirement that shoots them up to the top, because, chemistry and math and English and all those, I'd like to know where we stand on those. And I don't have a holistic view of that based on the information that you provided thus far. And I'm a little disappointed because when we have a conversation, I never I don't believe gave the impression that this was to talk about fiscal year 21. So I don't know where we had the miscommunication on that when we left that meeting, the retreat, and I followed up with you. I don't recall either one of us stating 2021 or 2020. I just think we had miscommunication
Yeah,
there.
that was my understanding.
But
I'm sorry.
But what I'm saying is I don't think that you ever communicated that to me or I ever communicated to you what we were thinking. So we were just operating on two parallel universes at this point.
Right.
With regards to the textbook committee, do you know the last time that they met? Have they met this year?
No, foreign language would have met last year. I believe the foreign language adoption was last year. With regard to Algebra 1, that was 14-15. That's what I was saying. We're 2 adoptions behind.
Right. So, but you have a textbook committee. Would we not potentially want them to look at, I mean, obviously I would assume there's other textbooks that have come in to be considered since 2 years ago.
Not until the adoption cycle.
Okay.
Doesn't work that way. Not until the adoption cycle.
Well, I will say with regards to the textbook committee, I have spoken to some people who have been put on the textbook committee, and at one point I congratulated somebody when I was sitting here and I saw their name and I was like, oh, thanks. They had no idea they were on the textbook committee. No idea. So I'm not saying that that means that everybody has no idea, but I'm just saying I don't think that the communication on textbook committee makes it to where whatever they say is just, we should just bow down and say that's what we're going to do. The people that are in the classrooms every single day with the students, they know what they need. No offense, I as a parent really don't know what my child's teacher needs when it comes to their textbook. I may serve on the textbook committee, but that doesn't give me any more or less authority to know. I just want to know what they need. Because if we spend $437,000 and I go to a parent-teacher conference and my kid's teacher says, I don't have the curriculum that I need, my blood boils. And I've had that happen to me before, that they don't have what they need. I just want to make sure we know what they need. I need more of a plan, to be completely honest, on all of this, to know how we're going to spend this textbook money as efficiently as we possibly can, because I think we're just throwing money at the problem right now, and we don't even really know how we're going to make sure that we get the results, or even really, quite frankly, what results we want. I don't think.
Any other discussion? Excuse me. Oh, there's someone behind you.
Sorry, I figured out what happened. So the state creates a consortium in which they pull together resources as a group to get on the statewide contract. And so it is a way to purchase through our purchasing department that would not get us an audit finding, but it does not open the field up for all vendors to bid on that. It's specifically the prices that have been given to that compilation of associations that have bonded together to get a certain price from certain vendors.
So then my question is no, we don't have any idea that that's the lowest price.
We cannot confirm that.
It was on, I'm sorry. Any other discussion? Ms. Hopkins?
I was gonna say, so he said we don't have enough money for the iReady, so are we gonna not get books because we can't get the whole, or what's the board, what we thinking here? Don't give the kids books because we can't get iReady right now, or hold off, or?
I don't think iReady's in the discussion on this particular motion. I think, and maybe Ms. Parker can speak to it, but
Oh, I was just going to say, with regards to iReady, I think we're looking at purchasing books under this, but we're also looking at purchasing French books, Spanish books, and various other books. And I guess what I'm saying is, if the teachers that teach, if we say we want to see our test scores in math go up 5 percentage points on the state test, and we say we need books in order to do that, but we also need the assessment component, and that's going to cost another X amount of dollars, then again, I don't know if we have money for some of these other things. I think it comes down to priorities. If we had done what we needed to do probably a while back, and I think you gave us a number of $1.5 million, if just to get textbooks for everybody. I mean, but we didn't do that as a board, so now we're talking about less than a third of that, and what we're gonna do with it, and prioritizing it, and I don't know that this is the prioritization that I would like to see in order to get us where we need to go. I'd love to see an academic plan and see how that all correlates with that. I just haven't seen anything like that from management.
Okay, I think Ms. Hopkins still has the floor. No? Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Howell?
How much would the I-ready component be?
Phew, very expensive. Somewhere around about $50 per child, multiplied times the number of students that are in grades K. So you multiply that times.
I've got it. $481,000.
And then the key would be you would want to invest in that for multiple years because you get discounts if you invest multiple years. But it is very expensive. And I thought, why would we go down that path if we don't know we're going to have the money to fully invest in that? But for now, I thought our best bet is to definitely shore up Algebra 1.
If we didn't do the foreign language, we still wouldn't have enough money to do the I-ready. So, I mean, are you, I'm trying to understand, are you saying we don't do any ready math and we don't do iMath, or?
I don't know, Chad, honestly. I mean, Mr. Howell, I really don't know. If we can't afford I-ready and to do it right, is that the right thing for us to be investing in? I mean, I think that's an honest question that we need to ask. We got into whatever the reading is, whatever the reading thing is that we bought a bunch of books for last year, and then come to find out that a bunch of the books that we were supposed to be buying, they don't even make them anymore. I mean, some things just have not been very well thought out, personally, in my opinion, and that, I don't mean to be offensive, because I think that was something that the state had approved, but I think that they were short-sighted in not knowing that, we can't get enough books for the classes for that. So maybe that's not the right thing for us on English language arts. If I-ready is going to cost us $500,000 every year, maybe that's not the right thing for us. Maybe we can't afford that. Maybe there's another option that would be better for us. I'm sure that the textbook committee didn't just have I-ready on their list. I just think we've got to look at all of that personally and see what we can afford. I would love for us to be driving a Porsche, but I think Ms. Martin said a long time ago, if we can't afford to drive a Porsche, then, maybe we got to drive our Ford. And that's where we're at.
So what I've heard from the teachers is that the ready math is great stuff and they love it. Would they like to have the extra component to it? Absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't afford that. So let's give them what they are already telling us that they want, and then we do need some other books as well. So, I mean, I guess that's where I'm at is we can't afford all of it, but we can't afford part of it. So why not get these resources to these teachers so this can be used? We've been talking about buying textbooks since before I was on the board, and so now we talk about buying textbooks, and it seems like we're not really going to buy textbooks. So I just want to buy textbooks for some kids is all I really want to do.
Well, to be honest with you, Mr. Howell, I've been on this board over 5 years, and that's all I've wanted to do too, but we've spent money on countless other things without a plan. I'm just asking for a plan. I'm asking for a plan on it. I don't think that's too much to ask. If we're going to put $500,000 into something, I think we should have a plan. We got it for the athletic field. Why can't we have it for books?
Okay, Mr. Moore is next.
I guess I just wanted to address one thing when we were talking about the I-ready. I just, going back to the original discussion on this, was funding physical, actual textbooks. So, I mean, in my opinion, this money should not be going towards digital resources, because that's what we originally talked about when we budgeted this. That's the only distinction I'll make. I absolutely can see some logic to questioning some of where some of these are going. It looks like the bulk of this is going to math and algebra, roughly $84,000 worth, plus some ELA resources, but roughly $84,000 would go to the Spanish and French. I can definitely understand where there's some questions there, but personally, this was budgeted originally as it was going to go towards textbooks. This was presented to us when we did the budget, entire budget season. We already approved this as a board. Then we took the money out when we had a money crunch, and now we're back to putting it back in. That's where I'm I don't know if Spanish and French are gonna move the needle or not. I just don't know. And I'm not sure, if we as a board are questioning the process, to me, that's a different discussion. And I can understand that. So really, are we questioning the process of how teachers have input in this? I don't know. I don't know whether it's good or bad at this point. It seems like we have had teacher input into this process all along. We simply have not funded the books. So I just want to go back on that on the digital part. That's my main thing here. Is these should be for textbooks. That's what we originally wanted to vote on this money when we had the retreat. We talked about this money going towards physical textbooks. That's just where my driving line is on this.
Ms. Hopkins.
That's what I was just gonna say. Shoulda, coulda, woulda is a thing, but it shoulda, coulda, woulda. So we gotta do something. Get something in the hands, get some resources. It could help and not hurt. It could help, and it will be like I said, the 15-year-old books, get them out and get the new ones in. See what can happen. You don't have, you ain't gotta throw the baby out with the bathwater. Keep the baby. Wash it up.
Ms. Parker.
Okay, last thing I'm going to say. Dr. Woodard, you said that you got a survey that you sent out to teachers. Do you have the results of those that you can share with us? Why is that not attached as part of our, I mean, if you want to tell us that you've gotten input from teachers, we need to see that stuff. I just don't I think everybody's trying to say that we've had this information from teachers, but it's not being conveyed to us. It's not being shared, in my opinion.
Dr. Martin.
Thank you, Ms. Kinzer. So the board, the recommendation for this purchase is being made from the head academic gentleman of this district. He takes input from principals, he takes input from teachers, he takes input from supervisors, and then he puts together the package that then comes to the board for approval. So the number one academian of this district is bringing you a proposal. The proposal is to replace outdated foreign language books, outdated Algebra 1 books, and outdated ELA resources. He's basically bringing to the board what was asked for at the retreat. So that's what we've brought. If we hold off longer, it will be sometime in probably mid-third 9 weeks to early fourth 9 weeks before those resources actually get here, which means the entire half of the year is gone. We bring the proposal from the head academician. It's up to you whether or not you want to approve it.
Sorry.
Ms. Parker.
I'm not trying to discount necessarily what Dr. Woodard says, but I will say, I want to see results. And I'm just going to be honest, I haven't seen results from the chief academic officer or from the chief executive officer when it comes to academic matters in this district. So I don't think that it is unreasonable to ask for more information on this stuff. I will just say, if the conversation that we had at a work session or at a board retreat where we didn't take votes, all of a sudden is going to be used to hold over our heads, I don't know that I want to participate in many more board retreats, because I don't think that was what the discussion was. I think that the discussion was that we were going to follow up. And with all due respect, whether this comes again in the third 9 weeks or the fourth 9 weeks, it should have been here in the first 9 weeks. And I guess I know why it's not here, but I do want to know why the chief executive officer and the chief academic officer did not advocate harder to keep textbooks in. I do think that's important.
I'd like to speak to that. Respectfully, Ms. Parker, for the last 3 years I've asked for textbooks. This year in the budget I asked for $858,000 for the appropriate resources and materials that got cut, and I told you guys I understand that. I understand where we are. When we found the surplus, and at the retreat there was a discussion about giving those resources back, and you said you wanted to see us come back with a proposal. So we've done what the board has asked us to do. We have, and we've done due diligence with regards to that. You know, you mentioned academic performance and not seeing results. We want to see results as well, but results are it comes with time, and we also have to have the appropriate resources. You're looking at a district that has not had math books in almost 12 years, and I hear you saying you want results. Then what I'm saying is let's put the tools in the hands of kids and teachers. Give us what we're asking for, then hold me accountable. That's all I'm saying. Give me the resources to hold me accountable. Now you mentioned that we didn't have a plan. We've given the board a 3-year plan, and we had a 3-year plan before that. I mean, I'm at a point where I just want to get the resources in the hands of the kids. For me, this is about the kids. This is not about posturing. This is about ego. This is about helping kids. That's what I really care about, is making sure that our kids have the resources that they need to be academically successful. Results will come over time. It just takes time. It won't happen overnight. But we get there a lot faster when the kids have the resources that they need and when the teachers have the resources that they need. So tonight I ask for your support in making sure that we move forward with what we discussed, and I leave this in your humble hands. Thank you.
Mr. Sims.
What I'm thinking is we haven't had resources for 12 years. We're looking at 1 month to get feedback from teachers, which was what I thought the board retreat talked about anyway. So that's why I don't feel like I can support it. Administration wants to talk about, we haven't given resources for curriculum. We didn't cut curriculum. We told administration this is the number we need to be at. Curriculum is what administration cut. The board did not cut the curriculum.
I'd just like to make a request, regardless of how this vote turns out. Can we have a discussion at the next work session on the academic plan and an update on how we performed last year and actually the last 2 years based on the academic plan? I went back recently and was looking at that document the doctor would have provided to us last year, and I would just there's certain things that I can't evaluate. I don't know how we did on 3 through 5 ELA, 3 through 5 math. I would just like to see staff go back, and I'll be happy to send that document to you if you don't remember it, but I would just like to see where we actually are academically on the plan and the progress that we're actually making towards that, if you don't mind, Dr. Woodard.
Excuse me, my light. With no other lights, then we are ready to vote.
Please vote now.
Mine's is messed up. It's yes. Trying to get in. Sorry.
Motion fails.
Okay, then we will bring this back at the work session. Hopefully you'll have a teacher roundtables, and you'll be able to bring that back to us as well, Ms. Parker. Okay, excuse me. Where am I here? Proposed operations organizational chart.
Digital form automation.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Bid 220-013, the Digital Form Automation Center, Mr. Laconin.
We had one bid. We had one amount. Our budget amendment that we turned back last month so that we could look at these bids and see what came through, amended the lines 141-72810-317, and then the corresponding entry was to fund balance 141-39,000.
All right.
So if you would like to add a budget amendment, because when we had our work session, we'd actually were waiting for those bids to be done.
Okay.
The bid got done. If you would like to amend the
I need a
budget,
motion.
we can do that.
Before we could, Mr. Fulbright's light is on.
We got somebody make
Okay.
a motion.
Mr. Moore has made the motion. Is there a second? Mr. Howell seconds the motion. Mr. Fulbright.
You've stated here that this was a bid. Did it go through the actual bid process?
That is correct.
Why did this go through and not the other ones?
It was requested they presented a sole source letter first, and the audit staff kind of frowns on sole source letters because they can't technically prove a lot of sole source letters. So because it was over $25,000, it either had to be on a cooperative, a statewide contract, or be bid. And so since there isn't a statewide contract or a cooperative that does anything like this, we had to bid it, and so
So it did get bid out?
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Discussion? All right, then we're ready to vote.
Doug, hold on one
Excuse me,
second, please.
excuse me.
I've got request approval of CareMonkey for digital forms and budget amendments.
Oh, yeah, we need the,
Yeah.
Budget amendment expenditure account code 141E72810317.
Okay.
And amending 141Q.
Hold on.
Okay.
141Q, okay.
39,000 fund balance.
Okay.
Unassigned fund balance.
Okay.
so now we're ready to vote.
Please vote now. That motion passes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is the proposed operations organizational chart. Once again, we asked for more discussion of that at the work session. Mr. Moore made the motion to approve. Is there a second? Mr. Dudley seconded the motion. Any discussion? Dr. Marzak?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Ready to vote if you
Are
are.
we, I have just a quick question. Are we only, what exactly are we approving on this? I'm kinda confused. Are we just saying we want to move toward this chart? Or are we
would be,
going to go ahead and implement with moving people into different positions?
What we asked for was to go ahead and, if you look at that chart, to fill the Director of Facilities position. When we brought this to you initially with the MJD funds, because of those coming in the way that they were, we asked that you freeze the construction portion of that, just trying to save money. I mentioned to you at the work session that we went back in and looked at electricity and natural gas. There's more returns than that, but the work that these two positions work directly with, the construction position, we returned over $330,000 to fund balance just out of those two funds alone. We didn't go into the other fuels and resources there. We identified those funds simply because those were funds that were never identified directly for student use, and then we did return them. So we would ask that you fund at least the director's position. I would advocate very strongly we go ahead and allow us to fill that construction position as well, for the simple fact that we are wrapping up 2 schools. We are changing our operations side pretty dramatically. We're almost complete as a staff, and we have a referendum coming in March that we have to prepare for. We've actually had conversations this week on where we're going, how we're going to attack that, and what we'll do, whether it passes or fails. This would be a great time to bring that person in, fill that position, and have them on board as we move into that process. Whereas if we freeze that now and move into the summer and ask you to fill it next year, they would possibly be coming in after we've already started a project. So my recommendation would be to allow us to go ahead, fill the director's position for sure, and at your will, my recommendation and my ask would be to fill both it and the construction manager position.
Does this add to the total number of staff in the central office?
It adds 1.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
And I guess my discussion on this is, I know I brought this up at the work session. You know, we just approved, or we're talking about $500,000 worth of projects coming up for the sports fields. The way I see this, especially, and I'm advocating essentially for the construction manager position, is my opinion on this. We've got $500,000 worth of projects. As you laid out, if we go with Hewlett Spencer and their process, we're still gonna pay them 6% of any project we do. If you take that out, I mean, these are the kind of projects I would love to see us start being able to manage in-house and basically utilize our own person that is looking out for the best interests of the school system, and solely the best interest of the school system, to be able to make that money. As far as I'm concerned, with just those projects, plus the other ones coming up, this is a position that will more than pay for itself as we move ahead, that is really an advocate on our staff that is looking out for our best interests, and that's what I'm looking for on this.
And the only reason I would ask to go ahead and do both is this. You've been part of a conversation that I have witnessed, from my corner back there for several years now, where Mr. Breeden has told you very simply, with the staff that's on the operations team, just the lawn mowing, the maintenance of overseeing the GCA or those projects, is one that is daunting. It is an everyday task to make sure that those folks are done. It was the will of this board, if you recall, to hold those folks that do work for us accountable. And if you remember that discussion that night, it was, we want you to stay on top of them. That's a very lengthy process. Mr. Hall, in that role right now, spends a lot of time just dealing with vendors that we deal with. We did a vendor survey today to talk about how we're working with those folks. The only reason I would say and advocated to add that is because as we move into new positions, this is, and again, this came about. It was in the planning, it had been there. It came about just because of the unexpected changes that happened on our side. But we will obviously do what you guys want us to do. I just see this as a very good time to offset those costs. I think you're right that we can offset costs, but I think that one thing that happens internally in this department right now is that we chase a lot of rabbits holding the people who work for us accountable. And if we added the 2 positions, we can do that, and then we can attack the things that you said where we're more involved in that and we oversee it, and we don't just rely on that contract to do everything for us.
Bottom line, give me figures for adding these 2 positions.
I don't deal with salary. I'm not deflecting, but I don't, because
okay, but you're asking us to approve these 2, because this is
think
approving the 2 positions, am I correct?
What we talked about at the last board meeting is that we can, go ahead.
What, you've already got one position in-house, although it would be some money in a raise for that position facility.
Correct.
But Mr. Perriman's salary is less than what Stan's was in his start, so there was some savings there that would offset that, am I correct?
Yes.
The only one that would be new would be the one you've been talking about.
Correct.
That we, may or may not now. I do know that we can't use BEP money for that. That's not what BEP money's for.
Right.
So, that money would have to be found somewhere else.
And we think we can find at least the money that would be necessary for the one position that's already funded to see that. We can do that within this budget because we've met with our energy folks, and we see the predictions for this year being as good as what we've had last year.
So you're saying that you can pay for this out of your budget line item that you have now?
We can pay for the one out of our budget line item. We would need funding from this body to do both.
And would it be a new hire for the,
It would.
Okay, so.
It would. And again, I mentioned that it's a good time for that, but again, I also understand and respect what you're dealing with, and that's on you guys. I understand that.
I don't think it's a good time for a new hire and for extra money, but I think it might be a good time to, if you can finance this out of your, the budget line that you have now.
And I'm comfortable we can.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Now, the motion is to approve the attached or Mr. Sam, excuse me, I didn't see the light.
Well, it's okay. I'll hit it after you were speaking. Go ahead.
Is the attached operational organization. There's nothing in there that says about spending more money, so in that motion. It's just the chart.
It's just the chart, and then
And you have a budget,
we
and
have a
you're
budget.
saying that you can take care of the one position through that and then see down the road
Yes,
what
ma'am.
you can do.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Just
So-
wanted to make it clear.
So if you're okay, we have the original motion, and right after the efficient manner says by filling both the director and construction manager's position. Do you wanna say from current funding?
If-
Does anybody have any input on that?
We can fill the directors from current funding, for sure.
Wait a minute. Let me,
If you put the construction manager in there and we have to take money out of fund balance or whatever, if you put the construction manager in there, I will not vote for it. I will not support it.
And again, I brought that about, I'm good with it not being there. But we do need the chart approved and to do the one.
I agree with her. I
Okay.
think that you need to do what's within your budget to do that.
We can do that.
Mr. Sims?
Yeah, I agree. If, you know, in private business, which is where I work, which is way different than where you are, I guess, but if we hire someone, we're gonna look for them to make the business money. And I feel like the construction manager, we're paying a construction manager already for, in Hewlett Spencer. So if, for us to fund this position, which I think will be next year possibly, I would need to see where that person can make a savings, and I think it can make us quite considerable savings if it's done correctly. And so I don't disagree with the chart. I wish I had numbers on what the difference in what the construction manager and director of facilities number is, but I don't guess we're gonna find that out.
That is not for, again, I'm not HR. And that's not
Okay.
passing the buck, but I don't set that, so.
Okay, so if I could kind of clarify where I was coming from with the motion. Functionally, I agree with the chart, and that's what I put into motion here, with the understanding that we've already approved a budget for this department, and they can do whatever they wish with that budget. Anything further than that would have to come before us again. So we could technically approve a dozen more positions here, which doesn't mean anything until there's actually funding, and they would have to come back to us and have those positions funded. Mr. Sims, I agree, that's definitely some discussions we could have further on what those look like, perhaps even for next budget year as we get to that, and at whatever point that he feels like his budget, or it's the proper time to bring to us, like, hey, we feel like this is a good time to bring someone on, there's a project coming up, the savings are gonna be there for that project, and here's why. I think that's a great discussion for us to have, but again, all I'm asking for is approval of a organizational chart, no change in funding, no budgetary changes. He already has the amount of money he has to spend, and it's up to him to spend it at this point already. So again, there is no funding request in what I've asked for in my motion.
Actually, don't seem, there you go. So I believe we're ready to vote.
Okay. So please vote now, but take a look at the motion.
No,
Okay. How do we wanna reword it?
that's not what, is that what you wanted to say, Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I'm good with the first sentence.
What?
Okay. How would you like me to reword it? Tell me what you wanna say.
I wanted to say with the original, just like this. We didn't,
Okay. Okay, hold on. Gotcha. Okay, take action.
that was the motion he made.
Okay, hold on. All right.
If I could clarify, the first sentence, recommend the approval of the attached organizational chart. That's
Take
it.
out everything else?
Yes, sir.
Sure,
I'm asking
not a problem.
just approve the chart.
Gotcha. So David Moore made the motion. Who seconded?
Mr. Dudley.
Mr. Dudley seconded?
He
Got
says
it.
okay.
Okay with you.
All right. Please vote now. Motion passes.
That motion does pass. All right, we do have some instructional bids, don't we, or do we? Other business? All of it's FYI? Okay, let me just say this, that I am going to, I've asked Ms. Shirley to, go back to the old, not the old, but how it used to be that our attendance is posted on our page on our website, and it'll be posted quarterly. I realize that we're in a different situation in that we, you know, the compensation we have happens whether we're in attendance or not, so I think it's something that our constituents need to know if we are there and present and representing our district. Ms. Hopkins?
So, just clarification with the books. So, with us not doing nothing, the cycle that Dr. Wood was talking about, we'll miss it again and we won't get them?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, they're gonna have the teacher roundtables at the PD that's coming up the week before Thanksgiving. So I would hope that we would have some discussion about, at the work session about that, and we might be able to vote on something in December. We're talking about a month.
And so, when the teachers tell us what they want, and if we still can't give it to them, then what?
That's always a problem, I would think. But I think we're gonna try to prioritize those things that teachers feel that could best serve their needs.
So we're gonna try to give them some books? Yes? No?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think this is not giving them books. I think it's giving them input. They're the ones that know best in the classroom what they need.
Okay.
Any other discussion? There's a motion to adjourn, and Mr. Howell is seconded, as he has all night, so thank you so much.